Hello YouTube, this is Mike. So I've got a question for you. What is one thing that empaths, codependents, borderlines, narcissists, psychopaths, what is one thing that all of these people who are seemingly at complete opposite ends of the spectrum, what is the one thing that they, well, not as the one thing, what is a one thing that they all have in common? And why do you need to know this? Because if you can understand this, you can be freed of your pain. So what is the point of this channel? Channel is the 4 things that heal BPD and NPD abuse. It's really all I have any desire in sharing is those 4 things. What my desire is to give you the tools that I have proven to myself have the ability to cure you of the ongoing pain that you are still suffering as a result of being in a narcissistic relationship. It's all I'm here to do. I'm here to give that information to those that want it. And more importantly, I'm here to give that information to those that use it. It's not even those that want it, because there's no shortage of people. If you found your way to this channel, you're obviously looking for some relief from your pain. You want to be happy. And I ask you that question, do you want to be happy? If I told you, let's imagine that you had some life-threatening illness, like, you were going to die in a week of a horrible death, and there was no cure, except if I was a doctor and if I could prove to you that what I was saying was true, and I said, if you stand on your head for an hour every day in the southeast corner of your house, you can be cured. You can be perfectly healthy. Would you do it? I'd like to believe that at least we would think we would do it. If somebody said, yeah, just tell me what to do. I want out of this pain. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm telling you how to be out of the pain that you are in as a result of that relationship. I can't tell you how to get rid of anything else in your life, but I can tell you how to get rid of that. And that's by doing those 4 things. So before we get into, and by the way, everything else I say on this channel that isn't specifically talking about how to apply the 4 things is kind of a waste. It might be entertaining for me and for you, but other than that, it's kind of a waste. And that's really all that I'm doing is I'm talking about stuff which may grab your attention, may give you a feeling of identification. You might feel like you're seen and heard and understood, and you're not alone. But then hopefully you'll take that feeling and then do the 4 things. But if you don't do the 4 things, it's pretty much a waste of your time. And listening to me is a waste of your time. So the 4 things are, if you want to be freed from the pain of being in or having survived a romantic relationship with a narcissist or a borderline, the 4 things to do are: number 1, you go full no contact. You make it impossible for them to contact you. I can't make it any clearer than that. You make it impossible for them to contact you. You do whatever the hell it takes. You throw your phone in the river, you move, whatever. Number 2, you work all 12 steps of coda.org, Codependents Anonymous, or whatever 12-step group you happen to feel a connection to. I don't care which one. You work all 12 steps with a sponsor. Can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with somebody else. And then sponsor somebody else when somebody asks you. That's number 2. If you haven't done those things, you haven't done number 2. Number 3, you work with a psychologist, not a life coach. Maybe even a counselor. I'm not saying that a life coach or a counselor can't be great therapists. They can. But I suggest finding a psychologist who understands cluster B personality disorders. And then the fourth one is daily meditation, which is really just step 11 of the 12 steps. If you do those 4 things, my guarantee to you is that at some point, I don't know when, at some point, if you do it consistently, you will wake up one day and realize that you no longer have any pain associated with that person. You will wake up one day and you will realize that you don't have any strong feelings about them, one way or another. You don't hate them, you don't need them, you have nothing against them, and you will look back on that relationship without any pain, remorse, sadness, fear, trauma. At some point, that will happen for you if you do those 4 things. Now that I've said what I need to say, let's get into the nonsense of my question, because we all need a little entertainment, which is, what is one thing that all empaths, codependents, borderlines, narcissists, psychopaths, what is one thing they all have in common? One thing they all have in common is they need to control you. And your relationship with your borderline or your narcissist, you know they try to control you all the time. You will go on for hours talking about how they try and control you. But you don't realize that you also are trying to control them and everyone else. You don't believe me? I can prove it to you. I'm just going to start reading some of the latest comments that have been left on my channel. By the way, I love my comments, and I'm happy that people leave comments because it creates really good discussion. Because if it's something that I want to discuss with you, you probably have felt it yourself. So here's one. This is in response to my video, when the narcissist borderline realizes they lost you. Okay, this is a recent one. I often use examples of real life narcissist behaviors. So if there's a celebrity that I believe is a narcissist or acts in a narcissistic way, and there's a certain phrase that they use, I will use that. For instance, here's one. Many people have said. That's a phrase a celebrity uses quite often. Many people have said. Many people tell me. This is very common for specifically a narcissist. A narcissist will talk this way. Now, narcissists aren't the only people. You don't have to be a narcissist to talk like that. But narcissists definitely talk that way and think that way. Many people have said. Because when it comes to narcissism, somebody who has the personality disorder of narcissism, not just a narcissistic person, somebody who has NPD, they do not know what external reality is. They don't live in that world. So the difference between psychopathy and psychosis and neurosis is that somebody who's neurotic knows what objective reality is, but they don't like it, and it causes them a lot of anxiety. So they're crazy, but their craziness isn't because they don't know what reality is. Their craziness is they're struggling with wanting to create a false reality, but they just can't do it because they still have an identity. They still identify with what they've said and what they've done. They have a linear progression of time. They do know what is true and what is false, but it really bothers them. And that, by the way, describes all codependents. So that's neurosis. Psychosis is when you don't know the difference between your fantasy and reality. And you don't identify with your own self. You don't have a self to identify with. Your sense of self changes with the breeze. Every day you are a different person. And you do not identify with what you've said and what you've done. You also don't have a clear distinction of what happens from one day to the next. So in other words, when you wake up today, you're not connected to what you did yesterday. What is most important for you is to get narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is what is used in place of an identity. So if you have an identity, that identity actually fuels you through your life. And the more empowered, the more individuated you are, which means the more self-empowered you are, the more power you have to create and follow your path in life. Narcissists don't have this, which is why they're completely dependent upon your opinion of them. They aren't dependent on the truth. If you have an identity, your identity has everything to do with how you interact with objective reality. In fact, objective reality will help you formulate your identity and what you do. You have a relationship with objective reality that's very important to you. Narcissists don't have this. They'd like to obliterate objective reality and replace objective reality with their fantasy of being worshipped as a god, because that's their defense mechanism. So when this particular celebrity says, many people have said, they're not saying, well, the objective facts are. No, they're saying other people's opinions. In fact, there's a lot of people who have this opinion, and my identity is attached to your opinion of me. And so if I can find a group of people who say good things about me, that's what I'm going to use as proof that I am a good person. Many people have said. Not my integrity. I have integrity within me, and my integrity is the most important thing. I will die. If I have my integrity, at least I have that. You can't take that away from me. No, a narcissist says, I don't know what integrity is. Those people have a good opinion of me. Therefore, I'm a good person. I'll give you another example of a narcissist. This was a guy who was accused of sexually abusing his stepson for years and years and years. This guy, the stepson ended up becoming a serial killer or something like that. And so it came out that he had been severely, traumatized and sexually abused and narcissistically abused by his stepfather. And so when confronted about this, the stepfather says, well, I mean, if I were to have done that for so many years, somebody would have caught me. That's my feeling about that. The important phrase about that is he says, that's my feeling about that. In other words, he doesn't respond or even know what objective truth is. He doesn't say, I was there, I remember, that didn't happen. He says, well, if I did that, then a lot of people would have known about it. So in other words, what people think is what determines the truth. Therefore, if nobody knew about it, it wasn't happening. Those are my feelings. He's a narcissist. He runs on whatever feeling is flowing through him at the moment. And his reality is based on other people's opinions. I say that because that person who says that phrase quite often is Donald Trump, who I am, by the way, let me say, I am absolutely, totally, beyond disappointed, angry, and upset with Joseph Biden. I think he's the worst president in existence in the history of the United States. Having said that, Trump was almost as bad. And Trump, in my opinion, is a borderline narcissist. So when I'm trying to explain narcissism and he pops to my mind and there's a good way that I can reference him, I will. So here's a response to that. Somebody says, that reference to Trump's controlled media accusation, I don't know what that means. Controlled media, I don't know what that means. That reference to Trump's controlled media accusation of being a narcissist was very self-defeating. Why antagonize half of your viewers? My impression, much more than half, by delving into politics. I still appreciate your content, but I'm sure that note tuned a lot of people out of your message. Just saying. Besides, if Trump's a narcissist, what's an old crooked grifter who became a billionaire by selling his political office influence dementia patient? I mean, the issue defeats the purpose of your videos. So, first off, let me just say, I don't care. I'm a human being, so I want people to like me, but I don't have any attachment to this channel. I don't care if this channel dies right now. If something I say makes it that you can't tolerate my channel, I won't lose an ounce of sleep if you stop watching. I won't lose an ounce of sleep if I stop making this channel, or if nobody cares about it. So the idea that I have to prevent antagonizing my viewers, it doesn't apply here, because the only reason I kept doing this channel is because people kept asking me to. I used it in the 2 years ago in the very beginning to work through my issues and basically convince myself to do the 4 things. Once I was off doing the 4 things, I forgot about this channel, and I honestly thought it was just going to fade into oblivion. And then a few years later I'll go, oh, why don't I just delete that thing? I'm not using it. I've got 3 or 4 other channels I don't use that I'll eventually delete. But people liked it and they kept on asking for more stuff, so I kept on making videos. But the idea that I have to appease you, or I have to avoid saying something that might push your buttons, political or otherwise, let me just get that idea out of your head. I'm always going to say what I think will be a good way to explain what I'm trying to talk to you about. And if it bugs you, without any malice in my heart, I completely say, there's the door. And you're free to go through that door and go watch whatever you want. But I'm not, the whole purpose of this channel, as I said in the beginning, is to give you the tools that I used that helped me. I have no other interest in that. What you do with them, completely not my problem either. I have no ego attachment to this channel. But what this person wants to do is they want to control what I say. So they're appealing to my ego, trying to say that if I say that Trump is a narcissist, that I'm going to lose, according to him, more than half of my viewership. So he's not talking about his feelings. He's not saying, hey, I like Trump, I'm offended by what you've said, or I relate to Trump, and therefore if you call him a narcissist, then that means you're calling me a narcissist, and I don't like that. Instead of being honest, no, they're going to go and try and manipulate me by placating my ego about this channel, which I don't have, trying to control what I say. That's a very codependent thing to do. So that's one of the things that codependents, narcissists, and borderlines all have in common. They need to control basically everything, but one of the main things is control what you say, what you think, and what you feel. Because we have two ways of interacting with our environment, of course on a sliding scale. But those 2 ways are, we either have an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. Internal locus of control means that you are self-individuated, that your sense of worth comes from yourself, You got that because you either you grew up in a healthy home where your mom loved you and reflected back on you that you have value simply because you exist, or because you did some kind of self-work to come to that realization through therapy or spirituality or discipline or something else. And then there's an external locus of control, which we've already described. The narcissist is the extreme example, has no internal reality, has no identity, and is completely dependent upon your feelings about them in order for them to get any sense of self-worth. And since they have no self-worth, they think the only way they can get it is by controlling what you do, what you say. They even want to control what you think and what you feel. That's why they're so abusive. So in terms of you guys are lucky. I don't have an agenda on what you think or what you feel, and I don't have any need to appeal to your anything. I also don't have a need to offend you. I don't have an attachment. So the good news is you'll know at the very least I will be telling you the truth as I see it. Now you get to decide whether or not it's applicable to your life or not. Let's move on. I'm just going in order here. Here's the next one. Somebody comes onto the channel in response to a video, why borderlines manipulate you and why you always fall for it. And this person says, Sir, I only just came upon your channel, and I can say I do not understand how you have any subscriptions. The way you talk to people, you are damaged, and you're trying, your is spelled Y-O-U-R, and you're trying to give advice to other damaged people. What you said to that mother about her kids was cruel and uncalled for. I don't remember what I said. And then she's going to address that person, I guess. Go find yourself a new life coach, please. You have been through hell and back. I am sure you do not need another rude, self-entitled bully rubbing your mistakes and the abuses you suffered in your face. Some of you need to be aware that some of these so-called coaches are narcissists and taking advance, I think you mean to say advantage, and taking advantage of strangers. Life coaches / counselors do not bully people. Good luck to those of you who stay. And if I have made a mistake and this guy was just having a bad day, even though having a bad day is not an excuse to talk to people like that, then I apologize, but I will not be watching anymore to find out. Well, first off, I completely agree. I have no idea why you guys subscribe to my channel. I mean, that's not true. I do know why. I understand. You want to find a place, you want somebody that understands you. You've been damaged. She's right. I am talking to people who have been damaged. And she's also right. I am damaged. I've been damaged by narcissistic people. So she's absolutely right about that. I've been damaged. And I am trying to give advice to other damaged people. That is absolutely 100% correct. And so I understand why you come on here, because like me, you were groomed to feel isolated, alone, unique. And you ended up not feeling that anybody understood you. You felt completely misunderstood. And it's incredibly painful to feel that isolated and alone and feeling like you're going crazy. You're gaslit all the time, and you stay that way. So when you come onto my channel, I end up sharing with you stuff that you intuited about your borderline or your narcissist, but you didn't allow yourself to believe because you were buying into their gaslighting of you. And I'm helping you to realize that no, you're not crazy. They really did damage you in all of those ways. Their behavior really was completely aberrant and irrational and dysfunctional and destructive, and you were a victim of abuse. And you finally come to that, somebody's reflecting back to you something that you need to hear. So you feel a connection. So I do understand why you come onto the channel. But as I said, I don't have a need for people to come on the channel, so I'm kind of baffled by it myself. I'm also not a life coach here on this channel. In fact, when people ask me to counsel them, I turn them away. I say, go find a sponsor and a therapist. I don't want to counsel you. So she got that wrong. I'm not a life coach, and this channel isn't about life coaching anybody. And again, I have no need for you to even be here. So, I don't know a successful life coach that works that way. Life coaches need you to watch their channel. They need you to want to hire their services. I don't. So I don't think I'm a life coach. I will definitely say that I fall into Vaknin's description of self-styled expert. That's true. I am definitely a self-styled expert. I'm not even well educated in this subject. I'm just I've come up with my own conclusions, and I pick and choose from whatever sources works for me. Life coaches, counselors do not bully people. I suppose that's true. What I'm willing to do is I'm willing to tell you the truth even when I know it's going to really bother you. I am willing to get aggressive and point out to you your codependence, your narcissism, your insanity, and I'm prepared to do it in a way that ruffles your feathers, because for some people that's the only way to get their attention. For some people that's the only way to break through their denial. For some people, what they want is they want to control their life coach. They want to control their therapist through ways I've already suggested, which is to appeal to their ego. Since I don't have an ego about this channel, that's not going to work. And since I don't have let me put it to you another way. I care about you enough that I'm okay with you being having a negative feeling. I don't need to prevent you from having a negative feeling. I don't need to prevent you from being angry with me, being intimidated by me, frightened of me, disgusted by me. I don't need to control that feeling in you. And that is because I honestly care about you. If I needed you to feel a certain way about me, it would mean that I had an agenda. It would mean that I wanted something from you. It would mean that I would have a selfish agenda, and I don't. So if you end up hating me, but it gets you to do the 4 things, I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to let you have any positive feelings. If you have positive feelings for me and those positive feelings help you to go do the 4 things, I'm happy to have you have whatever feeling. But I'm not attached. It doesn't affect me one way or another. So that's a good thing. That means that I honestly care about you. What this person is describing and what the person before them is describing is, again, somebody that needs something from you. And I don't. So I might have been having a bad day. I often do have bad days. I may have very well, who knows? I don't even remember what I said. Let's see, what else? Anything else? Trying to find other things. So what it comes down to is that if you are an empath, if you are a codependent, because most people identify with one or the other, so I'll give you the option to identify with either an empath or a codependent, which is really just repeating the same dynamic, 2 different words. Or if you're a borderline, or if you are a narcissist. The one thing that you have in common is the need to control what other people are thinking and feeling. For instance, I've said, and I will continue to say, and there's nothing anybody that is going to be able to say or do that will change this, but people will continue to try and do it. If you have been in a romantic relationship with a borderline or a narcissist for any length of time, if you have become emotionally attached and you have stayed past some kind of devaluing abuse, you are by definition a codependent. That's never going to change. And every attempt that you make to try and explain to me why you're not a codependent is only going to reinforce my belief that you are in fact a codependent. But being a good codependent, you will want to talk me out of it. You will want to argue with me. You will use any number of techniques to try and control what I say and what I think and what I feel. You might attack me personally. You might praise me. You might seek to get me attached to you by praising me and telling me how amazing and wonderful I am. That will usually be followed by some kind of then passive-aggressive way to try and change what I think. You may go into a long diatribe of explaining in a very intellectualized way why you're not a codependent or what codependence is and what it isn't. And all of these are because you can't tolerate somebody else having an opinion about you that you feel is a negative. You can't tolerate anybody seeing you in any other way other than perfect. And here's where the codependent and the narcissist are identical. Because we already know the narcissist needs you to see them as perfect. And if you don't, they will bludgeon, control, manipulate you, or ostracize you until you do. The codependent, they have a very specific way of doing it. They are going to, their main goal is to be seen as the perfect caretaker. The empath, that's where the word super empath comes from. And if you sound, I just heard myself say that and it sounds like something a 4-year-old would say. It sounds like a superhero. The super empath. You know, not just an empath, you're the super empath. And if a super empath isn't enough for you, then you're a heyoka. And the super empath is somebody who loves everybody more than is humanly possible. They are perfect in their love. They have God-like love. They love unconditionally. And for you to see them as anything other than these selfless, perfect, loving people, that is an attack on them. They feel attacked. They can't tolerate that. They can't tolerate that feeling. And that is exactly the dynamic that the narcissist has. So the difference is the super empath, if they truly are a super empath and not a narcissist, it means that the only difference between them and a narcissist is that they don't dissociate. They don't have the mental illness part. They struggle with reality, but they know what reality is. That's the only difference. That's why, it's hard to figure out when is somebody an inverted narcissist or a super empath, because the inverted narcissist will present themselves as a super empath. That's their narcissism, their grandiosity. Because as you know, narcissists are grandiose. So the grandiosity, even in the name, super empath, the name has grandiosity all written all over it. There's no humility. So let's see. Was there other stuff that any other examples of people trying to control what I say? There's another one. There's a borderline that keeps wanting to control what I say, and we're going back and forth. So this person keeps telling me that I have to stop lying about borderlines. And I have to say, she then tells me what I have to say and how I have to say it. And I keep responding in the same way. I say, look, if you don't like the channel, you can go somewhere else, but I'm not going to walk on eggshells to appease you. If you don't like it, go someplace else. And her response is, stop making me walk on eggshells. So by me refusing to be controlled, by her, and not saying what she wants me to say, how she wants me to say it, she thinks that I'm forcing her to walk on eggshells. But the difference is that I didn't come over to your house and knock on your door, say, hey, I'm coming over and I want you to listen to what I have to say and you have to like it. No, I didn't do that. You came to my channel, heard me talk, you didn't like it, and now you're trying to control how I think and what I say. And I'm saying, I don't want to do that. I'm going to say whatever the hell I want. So that's not making you walk on eggshells, because you're the one choosing to walk into my house. I'm not forcing you into my house. I'm not forcing you to sit down and listen to me. You can leave anytime you want. There's no eggshells here for you to walk on. But walking into my house and telling me how to think and how to talk in my own house, that is making me walk on eggshells. So there are just some examples. I think you get it. Everything I just said is nonsense, except for the first part, which is if you want freedom from the pain of having been damaged by a narcissist or a borderline, in my experience, there's only one way to do that, which is to do the 4 things. In my experience, which is all I have, if you don't do the 4 things and you're not, for instance, you don't have a personality disorder and you're in pain because of this, in my experience, if you don't do all 4 of the 4 things, you will never fully recover. You might get some recovery, but you'll never fully recover. And that was definitely true for me. I can say that I would not have recovered. I would still be in it. I might even be back with that person 2 years later. I don't know. I would still be upset and hurt. I would still be ruminating. I would still be either vacillating between idealizing what we had or filled with rage and resentment. I would be somewhere in there. I would probably have borderline tendencies. I would probably be, unable to trust people or allow people in. That's definitely what would have happened if I had not done the 4 things. And it is my experience, based on my observation, that is the case with every other non-cluster B person who has gotten severely damaged in one of these relationships. They never get over it. It's an infection. It's an infection that will not go away with time. And these 4 things are a multi-spectrum antibiotic, antiviral that will wipe it out in terms of that relationship. So I offer that to you. If you want what I have, you got to do what I do. Every question that you have, literally, every question that you have is either meaningless or will be answered by you doing the 4 things. I'm going to know if you've done them. I'll be able to tell by your question, your comment. I will absolutely know. And it's not because I'm psychic. It's just because anybody who's done the 4 things will also know. They'll be able to tell just by listening to your comment or your question. Your protestations to the contrary, it's still obvious to us if you have been infected and if you've done the 4 things. So if you really care about what people think about you, go do the 4 things. And then you'll never have to worry about being accused of being a codependent ever again. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, but I don't need to. Vic Cricks, question. How much do you work to act contrary to your codependent tendencies? I've had relationships in the past that were very fulfilling and didn't get out of control. I don't understand how those 2 phrases go together. How much do I work to act contrary to my codependent tendencies? I don't view them as codependent tendencies. So I'm not just trying to isolate my codependent tendencies. You have brought up an extremely valuable question, which is contrary action. That is probably the most valuable tool of the 12 steps, is that your feelings have nothing to do with it. The only thing that matters is that you act in a constructive manner. The good news is that every time that you consciously act contrary to your extremely strong impulses and tendencies, is that you create new neural pathways in your brain. And that's one of the places that the healing comes from. So how much do I work to act contrary to my codependent tendencies? Whenever I'm in pain and I know that I'm being driven by my selfish, self-centered narcissism, which codependence is very narcissistic, and I know that, I've learned that that's going to be harmful to me, I do everything in my power. So there have been no shortage of times where literally I have wanted to commit suicide. I've been in so much pain, and I wanted to take some kind of suicidal action, not necessarily trying to physically kill myself, but doing something that's really self-destructive, trying to relieve the feelings. And instead, I do something totally contrary to that. And it makes me feel worse. But that's the problem. Codependents, borderlines, and narcissists are infantile. They're completely running off of their impulses and their emotions. And they can't tolerate not feeling good all the time. They can't tolerate it. And, I'm not judging that. I'm one of those people. So how much do I work? I'll do whatever it takes. If I'm aware that I need to act contrary to my impulses, I'll do whatever the hell I can. I mean, my life depends on it. That's why I say, if you do the 4 things with everything that you have, I mean that, as though your life depends on it, because it does. And then you have this other thing, which I don't know how this connects. You say, I've had relationships in the past that were very fulfilling and didn't get out of control. So have I. I don't understand your question. What does one have to do with the other? I don't get it. Are you saying that you're not codependent because you've had fulfilling relationships? I don't know there's a disconnect. What does that second paragraph have to do with the question? Power Steam International. Question. Just wondering if years of BPD abuse can turn someone into a true narcissist, or if that's always the result of childhood trauma. A true narcissist, I don't know that I would use that word. Narcissism is narcissism. There are people that have narcissistic personality disorder. So if you're talking about people that have a personality disorder, you're talking about somebody who has a mental illness. You're talking about somebody who can't tell from one day from the next, that won't be able to tell you what they did yesterday. Here's something, by the way. Watch Sam Vaknin's channel, because he's very, very informative. And he says here's some misconceptions. One is that narcissists lie. He says they don't lie. They don't know what the truth is. They're making stuff up as they go. That's what I was saying about the stepfather of the serial killer, who, when confronted about all of the sexual abuse that he did over the years to his stepson, he didn't say, "No, I was there, here's the truth, here's what really happened." He said, "Well, if I had done that, somebody would have said something, so how can it be possible that I did that? That's my feeling." That he's completely telling you that he doesn't know if he did or not. He doesn't remember. And so he's coming up with a reality. He doesn't even say, but he could have said something totally different. And even if they do know that they've done something horrible, they'll come up with some kind of very elaborate justification. And the justification, which is false, is not a lie, because they come up with some scenario that fits their emotion about it. So if they feel, if somebody, for instance, when, if somebody kills somebody else, and then afterward, when asked about it, they say, "Oh, you don't understand. He was trying to kill me. I was defending myself." You could say, "No, actually, we have it on video. That person was looking in the other direction and wasn't even looking at you, and you stabbed them in the back." Well, the narcissist will go, "Well, that's not real. That's false. That's doctored tape. It's like a flat earther. Oh, that was done in a studio." Because from his perspective, he remembers the feeling that he's projecting onto it, and he's created a story to justify the feeling that he has. His feeling is true. Objective reality, he doesn't know what that is. So being in an abusive relationship is not going to turn you into a person with narcissistic personality disorder. You may pick up narcissistic traits. That is very common. You may pick up borderline traits, but it won't turn you into a true narcissist. That's what you mean by true narcissist. You won't have the mental illness. You'll be very neurotic, which is, you may look and act exactly like one, but you'll know what objective reality is. You just will be really, really uncomfortable with it. And you don't have to worry about that if you do the 4 things. You want to avoid turning into a narcissist? Go do the 4 things. So Vikrik says, "Sorry, unclear. The second part was because codependency lead to destruction with a BPD girlfriend, but with an ex that was a HSP, I don't know what that is. The fixing and helping worked out fine." All right, so that's not the same. So you're not being completely clear with me. What is HSP? Histrionic? Is that what that is? So you've been in relationships with other damaged people that have disorders, but according to you, your codependent behavior worked. So that's not what you said. You said, "I've had relationships in the past that were very fulfilling and didn't get out of control." Didn't get out of control. That's not the same as being a fulfilling relationship. That just means that you had a dysfunctional relationship, that highly sensitive person. Yeah, and that could, by the way, that could mean anything. Highly sensitive person could mean anything. Borderlines are highly sensitive people. Narcissists are highly sensitive people. Codependents, empaths are highly sensitive people. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I'm just reflecting back to you what I see here. This isn't a good thing. That experience that you had where you were able to be the codependent and you were there to fix the other person, as you say. You used that word. I didn't use it. You used it. The fixing and the helping worked out fine. It didn't work out fine because, number one, you're not with them. So something obviously didn't work out. Otherwise, you'd still be with them. But either way, you weren't the only thing that you're saying is that they didn't get out of control. It doesn't mean that they loved you, and it doesn't mean that they weren't objectifying you and using you. In fact, it's obvious that they were. Because according to you, your reason for being in the relationship, for them, your value to them was you fixing them. It sounds like a lot of work. What are you getting back from that? The only thing that you're getting back from that is the narcissistic supply of, I'm the perfect caretaker. I'm doing it and it's working. I have value. You're not getting love. They're not looking at you and saying, I see you for who you are. I support you in what you do. You have value simply because you exist. No, you had value because you were able to successfully fix them in their narcissism. Because that's what it is. They're not an NPD, but highly sensitive person, meaning you've got to constantly walk on eggshells. You've got to meet all their needs. You've got to go out of your way to give this and do that. And according to you, it was very fulfilling. It doesn't sound fulfilling to me at all. So you moved to America for work, so why didn't you bring them with you? Why didn't you marry that person? So there's something you're not telling me. If the relationship was that good and it was that fulfilling, then you marry that person and you bring them with you. Something's that you're not giving me the whole story. And even if you are, none of that describes a healthy relationship. It describes a codependent, dysfunctional relationship that is very superficial at best, where your purpose in the relationship is simply to meet their out of the ordinary, highly sensitive needs. So again, do the 4 things. You do the 4 things, you won't need to do that. Because seriously, think about it. If that's your definition of a fulfilling relationship is where you meet their demands and they don't get upset. You said, I wanted something more exciting. Okay. Anyway, so that's all, guys. So if you do the 4 things, let me talk about where I think true healing comes from. True healing comes from taking full responsibility for your selfishness. And that it's not the way it sounds. That sounds very harsh. Like you're judging yourself for being selfish. And that's not what I mean by that. It is the most loving thing you can do for yourself to acknowledge your needs, to acknowledge your desires. And when you do the 4th step in the 12 steps, not the 4 things, there's the 4 things and then there's the 12 steps. When you do the 4th step, you take full responsibility for all of your anger. And that entails looking at what you wanted from people that they didn't give you. Or you look at how you believe you were mistreated by people. And when you look at and you take full responsibility for your side of the relationship, even if they did objectively abuse you and were hurtful to you, you will find that you had selfish, self-centered needs that didn't get met. And that was hurtful to you. And that you didn't need to volunteer to be in a relationship where you didn't get your needs met. And so really you're angry that you chose to be in a relationship that wasn't ever going to give you what you wanted. And you kept on trying to you kept on out of control, but in your codependent way, your control is to appease people You meet their needs, you love them, you fix them, you appease them, and that is your method of control to get your selfish desire, which is to get them to never leave you, to love you, to accept you, to whatever. And by acknowledging that you had selfish, self-centered motives, you're actually being loving to yourself for the first time. For the first time, you're actually allowing yourself to have all those needs, and that it's okay that you were hurt and disappointed. And then you realize that it was unfair of you to ask, in this case, someone with a mental disorder to have a loving relationship with you. At the very least, you were selfish in asking them to love you when they were telling you the whole time they weren't capable of it. And that creates a healing, because you finally then see yourself the way your parents should have seen you, which is you have value simply because you exist. And the ideal relationship is where you're with somebody that gives you that feeling. And because they give you that feeling, they don't have to demand anything from you. You give because you also see them and value them simply because they exist. You're not focused on what you're going to get back from them, because you're so focused on watching them be happy and doing what you can to add to that happiness. And their response to that is to be that way for you. They think about you, and the thought of you being happy makes them happy. And they do things to empower your individuation. That's a real relationship. A relationship where two people are trying to manipulate, control, and abuse is a way of trying to control you to get what they want from you. And your loving and fixing is a way of abusing them, controlling them to get what you want from them. So do you want to stop doing that? Do you want to have the real thing? There are 4 things you can do to make that happen. All right, that's it for me, guys. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And yeah, see you later.